So I picked a really challenging wedding to actually show you guys, and I didn't start trying to color grade it until our lunch break today. And I'm like, oh crap, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show them how, because it's so blue. We walked into this bride prep, and I don't know if you guys can tell, hopefully the color on there it's so blue. And you guys, I was like cranked really like warm on my camera, and it was still, even the photographers were commenting how blue it was. I think it was because, so this was her view. That's the Brave Stadium, and there's like a concrete patio out there. So it's like this, like a weird light was just reflecting into the entire bridal suite. So I figured I might as well show you guys what I do for color grading with super challenging footage. Should be, hopefully your footage isn't as blue as mine. Does anybody in here use scopes when you color grade? Cool, like a couple of you guys. So I'm going to show you guys how I use scopes with Magic Bullet. And I'm not like an expert with scopes, but I know enough, I think, that I could show you guys how to get natural looking skin tones and how to correct color. It's a really great reference when you are color grading for sure. So this one's a little dark, so this is a great example. One of the things I did not know before learning scopes, specifically the RGB parade, was that how much scopes can tell you about your exposure. So this line here, 1.0, if anything is above it, it means your highlights are blown out, you've lost detail. This 0 down here, anything below it, you've lost detail in your shadows. So from maybe like, so like right in this is where your midtones are. So automatically you can see everything is really dark in the shot, which you can tell by your eye, but it's also just good to see what is actually happening in the scopes. So what I do, the first thing I do is I correct the exposure. And this is Colorista, so this is everything that is in Red Giant Suite. You have so many options. I don't even know what to do with half this, or more than half this stuff. I just use Colorista, and if you guys are interested in Colorista, you can buy it separately. You don't have to get the whole suite. And then also over here, just showing you guys around real quick, it was all these like LUT options. Like all of these are options that are customizable. Some are like, they're all wonky, so it's like you could kind of build your own, but you could probably edit it and save it as your own. Anyways, so you've got like all these looks options. So when you add Colorista, oh, I don't want to see that. I want to see there we go. First thing I do is I fix exposure. So I will raise the mid-tones, and don't get too hung up on like the crazy pattern that you see. Sometimes I can figure out what the pattern is, sometimes I can't, but just kind of know you're able to see what's exposed as well as a color dominance. And what I also look for is patterns that match. So this matches this, and so these are actually kind of even, but the blue and the highlights are higher, so you can kind of see. I just kind of look for the patterns. Again, I'm not an expert, but so I raised the midtones. What that did was it actually raised the shadows, so I'm going to want to bring the shadows back down. And you don't want it to go past that bottom line. You just want it to touch. And what I do also, it's hard to tell because I feel like this is on a display mode for the TV, so it's actually really small on my computer. I want the blacks to be an even black, so what I'll actually do over here, I'll come over to curves. So blue's touching barely, which is great. And then I'll bring down the greens to also touch. So I really target the color channels with curves when the wheels aren't enough. Because if you do the wheels, you'll do more of a shift to the entire image, and I'll bring the red down a little bit. And so then actually what you can also do is you can bring the highlights up, but you don't want to go past the line because then you start blowing stuff out. Her robe's starting to get blown out. So you just want all your information underneath that. So that is exposed. We haven't worked on color yet, okay? So just by looking at it with your eye, you know it's blue, kind of green. But if you want to learn scopes, you can just kind of go ahead and shift towards the red because we need red in the highlight. So I'm just coming over here to the highlight wheel, and you'll see things start to shift in the scope to even out. And already she's starting to look normal. I don't know, I hope the color is somewhat accurate on y'all's screen. Can you see the TV screen? Does it look okay? And it's still a little bit, I mean, that's a lot better than it was. So that's what it was before, right? It's like when you see all the gradual stuff, you're almost thinking you're not doing that much, then you go back and look. So I'm actually pretty happy with that image. And what I've actually just started doing, and it didn't apply to, did I put it on Braley and Tom's film? I think I did actually. Over Christmas, over Black Friday, I bought White and Reverie's one of their LUTs because it was on sale. And so I don't normally do LUTs, but I've been wanting to experiment with it. And so I did it for the past 2 films, and I actually really love it. The only thing is I am shooting in more of a contrast mode, almost like a finished profile in camera. And when I added the LUT, it just punched in like really hard contrast. When you shoot with a contrasty LUT, or when you plan on applying a LUT, you want to shoot more flat so that when you add the LUT, then it starts looking natural. So in order for me to add the LUT, I'm actually going to have to bring contrast down until I start shooting weddings neutral, which this last weekend we did shoot a wedding more neutral. So I'm excited to see how that looks. So all that to say is this is a good color base. We corrected the exposure, we corrected the color, and the LUT will put more of a finishing touch on it, and we'll be able to customize the LUT, the intensity of the LUT. What I like about White and Reverie's is they really do balance the skin tones. Just something about it makes them pop, and less green, because that's a Canon thing, I think. But anyways, so the color grading really, I mean, I guess this is just color correction. The color grading more comes with the LUT. So I just do a basic color correction. I want my scopes to look even. I want the exposure. Technically, I could boost the highlights a little bit because it's not going to go over. I just wanted it to go a little bit higher. I could. And I could go a little bit warmer just to bring out that blue a little bit. I don't know. I don't want it to look too red. Anyways, because actually when you see this shape, you see the red actually grew, so the midtones got more red. But that's actually a good thing. Skin tone is more red than it is blue. So it doesn't have to be even. You have to kind of analyze what it is that's in the shot. So, but the fact that the skin looked blue before, obviously that was not okay. So again, and I actually went and did this at lunch. Just in case I couldn't figure out live, I was going to show you guys what I did at lunch, but actually I'm really happy with that. But so yeah, before and after. And then I don't know if I can just apply this. The room I had it a lot darker. Actually, I'm not even going to copy it. I'm just going to do this from scratch. And then I'll show you guys different parts of the wedding day. Or maybe I could just go ahead and, let me just do this real quick. This is much better exposure, so we won't have too much of an issue here. I'll go ahead and still bring up the midtones. Honestly, when I look at it, it doesn't look underexposed. I feel like she's well lit, but looking at the scopes, it's a little dark. So I'm just going to bring it up just a little bit. And she has actually pretty flat lighting on her face right now. So if I bring it up too much, it'll just get flatter and flatter and flatter. So I don't really want to make it too flat. But again, as I raise the midtones, the blacks start raising up. We don't want the blacks to raise up, so I'm going to bring them back down. And I could do what I did before and bring the channels down a little bit, but actually that matches pretty well. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move the highlights. It might not even be the highlights. I think these curves, this is the midtone. We can move the midtone over to the red to give her. This one actually might need more work. I might need to add like saturation and orange because it's just so flat in blue. Can bring up the highlights a little bit. Now what I could do, now you see the blue peeking here. I can, because I wanted her image to pop a little bit, So I'm bringing that up, then I go down to the blue channel and bring down those blue highlights. So back in safe zone. And just looking at it, even though this is even, to me she still looks kind of washed out. And so I might just, this might be one that you would have to just kind of play with, add a little bit more warmth here maybe. A lot of times what I do is I actually bring out the blues. I bring, maybe not that one. Like if the bride's dress looks blue, you can either bring down the blue saturation or you could target her dress using the channel. A lot of time her dress is maybe like right there, and like this is not a dress shot, but so you can't see it, but you can really target just certain parts of the picture depending on the exposure and take a color, push a color more, take a color out. So that's all I'm going to do for that one for now. I feel like that could use a little bit more work, but it's I think that one's going to be a little bit more tricky. And so let's see what else we got here. This is our safe shot during the processional. So let me just show you guys, this has nothing to do with color grading. But I love the shot of everybody just standing up. It's just like, it could be an epic, like as you're building the highlight or you're building the film, and then you see her walk. Like that could actually be a usable shot. But it's our safe shot, and then we move it over to the middle. Well, you know what? This wedding, we moved it to the middle, got yelled at by the church lady and had to get out of the aisle. So we went back over here and made it a little bit tighter. Anyways, that one's not really too bad. I don't think I would need a show correction on that one. Then again, this is pretty orange. We could do their vows maybe. Do you guys see that the shutter strobe? I don't even know what I'm going to do with that. I don't even know if I saw that while we were filming. Likely that means I am not going to cut to this shot very often in the film. You'll hear it. They didn't do custom vows, it's generic vows. And you might just see, honestly, you might see her just walking down the aisle and then you hear the vows and then a kiss. I might not have even cut to this shot. Totally off subject, but.
What's like your strategy, like say if the ambient room light was more orange, but then like the spotlight was like more blue? How do you?
I can correct that with the color correction stuff.
More of the curves and stuff?
Yeah, I would kind of target wherever that blue light is.
So you only do curves, you don't do any kind of like, I just use the built-in file, so I just go and like try to like mask. It's not masking, it's, what is it? Yeah, like color picker, like grab the blue and then turn it down. Like you don't do, you just do more curve stuff.
I do more curve stuff.
That's, sometimes it gets like kind of speckly, like
Yeah.
like every single bit of color, and so it never ends up looking right.
Okay.
And
So
especially when the colors bleed together, it kind of
yeah, like it doesn't work well with gradients. Yeah. So that's what's so great about the curves is you are literally, you can really pinpoint, but then that does have that speckled look. It doesn't work with the gradient, or you can make like a gradual change to it. So we just add, let's just see what we need to do to this one. And this really isn't bad. So how's the exposure? Let's see. Exposure isn't bad, highlights aren't bad, shadows aren't bad. This really is a nicely exposed shot. We could bring up the midtones a little bit. I mean, I guess we wanna, the highest one was still kind of low, I guess. Around 0.6 or a little higher is a good place for midtones. And by doing that, I brought up the red shadows and the green shadows just a little bit, so I want to bring those back down. You could just do the shadow and bring them all down, but I just want to make sure I have a nice clean black, because that does affect the color a little bit. So, and then looking at it, honestly, I'm not even sure what to do, but looking at it, it needs more, like looking at the scope, it needs more blue. So I'm just going to start shifting over the blue a little bit, and we're starting to peak, and I can push that back. I'm going to bring up the mids. And looking at it just by eye, I feel like his jacket turned a little cool. And I feel like there's, I don't know. sometimes I try to see like if what my eye is seeing is actually accurate. And it looks like, so the density of what I see, there's a lot of density in the shadows of the blues right here. So I do think his jacket turned a little blue, so I can just warm it up just a smidge, or I could just back off on the midtones, but I think that's okay. So that really wasn't like a terrible one. It wasn't like super tricky. Just got to get it pretty close, and then when you add a LUT to it, it'll just kind of do that final touch. Let's see what else. We don't need to do ceremony B-roll. So this bride, you guys, okay, she did not feel good her entire wedding day. She missed her rehearsal dinner or rehearsal because she was in the hospital. So the day before her wedding, she was in the hospital with diverticulitis, which is like inflammation or infection of the intestines, something crazy. She was in pain all day. She was on antibiotics. She called it in early for the reception, like she left. And they got her first song wrong. So the whole time during the first dance, or the first dance song, she's looking at the band like trying to tell them to stop. And we're like, just go with it. And she just keeps looking at them. I'm just like scrubbing through so it's not smooth. Anyways, that's pretty, oh, I can show you guys light setups too here. But anyway, so John is actually with the stage behind him. Our lights are pointed at them, and we have this nice, beautiful crowd shot in the background. But she's kind of looking unhappy the whole time. But I guess that works right there. She's looking at the band. All right, I'm getting distracted. Let's see. Groom stuff looked really blue too, but it's going to be really similar to the bride. I don't know. I mean, is there anything? Do you guys have any questions? I don't know if I really need to show you guys a bunch of shots. I could do this one too. Right. Yeah, you just dial it in to whatever you want. And I think each clip is going to be different. So you can't just like paste the same to all of them. You're kind of going to go through. Some might be a little bit too much. Some might not be enough. And so you're going to have to adjust it. When I first started doing the LUTs, I did an adjustment layer and added it to the whole thing and realized quickly that I needed to customize it for each one. Not all of them need changing. It'll just be a few that you're like, whoa, I need to dial it down, or that one needs more. So after you color grade, then you add your LUT to the individual clips. Does that answer your question?
Your steps typically like camera matching, different cameras. Do you have a hard time kind of matching or just following the steps typically?
When you follow the steps with the scope, it's really easy to match cameras. You're able to see, even if one is like yellow cast and one's green cast or whatever, you just, when you bring it all, when it's neutral, it's really easy to match cameras that way. Let's see what this says. I think just by default, I always bring up the midtones just a little bit. Bring up the highlights, but I'm also going to bring the blues down. I just wanted that. Oops. And if you're not sure what I'm doing over here, like if I just have 3 dots, this is midtones. And it affects the color. And this is like highlight, so her dress can look real blue here. This is another way to target the dress if it's like the highlight. You can like take the blue out of the dress that way. And these are the shadows. So, but normally I kind of know where to specifically target the area that I'm trying to change. That just comes with practice. So, just warm that up, balance those. And since I lifted the midtones, again, sometimes I forget, like it lifts the shadows every time. So you just have to drop the shadows just to barely touch that bottom line. And the red's actually smashed into that a little bit. So I can, this will be the last one. I feel like I'm really boring you guys.
I think a lot of times I've tried to use like the color curves. I've been really unsuccessful, but I noticed that you're just using it for like the shadows and the highlights. Like you're just using your like endpoints on each side instead of using the middle, which I've always tried to like manipulate curve
Yeah.
in the middle. As
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, that's just not.
Yeah. Wait, you're talking about the curves or the wheels?
Sorry, the curves.
Okay, yeah. You can really get wonky colors with midtones, especially, I mean, even with the wheels. A lot of times, all you need to do is adjust the highlights. That's like a big portion of color correction. And then just a little change with the midtones usually. I really try not to shift the shadows too much because, again, that can get kind of weird. But again, the scopes, first exposure, then color. And just making these little weird patterns that you see kind of even out a little bit. So that's simplifying it, I think. But
I just had a question, and I don't know if you said it and I missed it. It is the secondary color wheel. That's the part that I don't understand what exactly it does.
are you talking secondary? Which one? This? Or these? Okay, so hue, saturation, and probably luminescence. So if I increase the orange saturation, and I can even shift it, make the oranges more red. So you can really target. Yeah. So I'll do that if an image, honestly, like, well, I guess it's okay. I think the Mylette will fix their skin tones. But I used to play with that more to fix skin tones. This is luminescence. So if I bring up the orange luminescence, they're going to turn white. Because like the orange is turning lighter, and if you darken it, the luminescence, that really gets deep. So I don't mess with these too much, again, unless there's like a really wonky thing going on in the footage. So I think that's it. I mean, that's really simple and short. I guess as far as the recording, we can be done here. But if you guys want to see more shots like of a wedding, where our lights are, how we set up the toast and stuff, I can kind of go with you guys and show that.
Did we do any questions?
They did a few. Do you guys have any more questions?
Do you ever use vector scope for skin tones, like over the skin line?
No, I thought that I had one here. Or is this? No. I don't know how to read all the graphs. I just learned how to do the parade, so that's all I'll kind of stick with.
Have you ever used colorful finale?
No, I've heard good things about it, though.
I was wondering how it compares to Red Giant.
All I know about Red Giant is, like, I've used it for 10 years before I even was doing weddings, and it's really robust. It doesn't destroy color information or anything like that, even when you're bringing up the exposure. So that's what I like about it. Back in the day, like the built-in into Final Cut and Premiere would kind of destroy color, and it just wasn't good, so you had to get a plug-in. I think Final Cut X's, if you actually went into the color options here, I think it's actually pretty good. Now, for the longest time, I thought this was all we had to use, and then I realized we have color wheels as well as color curves, and you can do the same thing. But I personally like just the interface of Red Giant better for that. So, all right, well, that's it for that.